Welcome back to the last subject for today. Relatively short subject. We do have some interesting videos to show you, and also we've got a little activity at the end, which is it's something to do anyway. It's about locating somebody. I spoke over the last couple of days about the importance of open source intelligence, and we will touch on that a bit today because it is a major part of being able to find someone online. Okay. There's of course another component of being able to find someone not online, which is called field calls, which we'll talk about as well. But as an investigator, this is a really popular area, especially now. So if it is an area that you're interested in, I do encourage you to learn more about it and do more courses to skill yourself as an investigator. I did say we were going to talk about pay rates, and that we might do that after we've finished this session. So if you have any questions about that, fire them through to Paul. Any questions about, locating people and, how we go about that, make sure you fire them through to Paul. I know it's getting late. It's getting late in the day, getting late in the week. Realise that. But, these are, once we get through this today, we're sort of on the home run. Okay, so locating and investigating subjects. So this is really about finding people. Okay, that's what it probably should be called, how to find someone. There's probably a little bit more to it than that. There's a myriad of reasons why you may need to find someone, whether you're looking for a missing person. That's very difficult work to do, and 99% not successful. So, you may have someone come to you and want to engage you as a PI to find a missing person who's been missing for 30 years. That's going to be tough, okay? So from my point of view, you need to weigh up. These are very emotional things. When someone goes missing, if anybody's had anybody missing in their life, and I haven't, but I've dealt with lots and lots of them. They're very, very emotional, okay? People want to find people. They want to know reasons why someone went missing. Just be cautious, I guess, about taking on jobs where you're taking money off people when you really know that there's probably not much chance you're going to find someone. If someone's gone for 30 years, look, let's be honest, they are very good at not being found, or they're in a shallow grave somewhere, okay? And it's going to be very difficult for you as a PI to find them. So keep that in mind, I guess. It goes back to your ethics. I mean, yes, you could engage on a project to make some inquiries, but, taking, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars off someone because they're desperate to find someone, I'm not sure whether that's ethical, but I'll leave that up to you. It's to your judgment. That's just one thing about finding people. Aside from that, there's dozens of other reasons why banks need to find people, insurance companies need to find people, probate lawyers need to find people. Someone dies in a will, they need to find the beneficiaries. Obviously, insurance companies and banks and that need to find people to serve stuff on them. That's a really popular area for PIs, sometimes referred to as sort of mercantile agency. Okay, but it's an area you can go into. Skip tracing, of course. Okay, so we've got quite a few videos in these. That's because, look, I'm not an expert in open source intelligence, but some of these videos are quite good. Take a look.
In this video, we're going to share our top 10 Google search techniques that will help you Google like a pro and find exactly what you're looking for in the minimum amount of time. Tip 1. How to search for an exact phrase or quote. If you want to identify the source of a quote or phrase, or exclude any website that doesn't include the exact phrase you're looking for, then simply place the search terms in quotation marks. If I copy and paste a line from Plato's Republic without quotation marks, you'll notice that Google actually recommends a different wording and provides over 4 million search results. If I add the quotation marks, we suddenly narrow that down to just 7 results and can now identify the correct translation. This is perfect for referencing. Tip 2. How to exclude a word from search results. If you want to prevent a certain word from appearing in search results, simply place a dash or minus symbol directly before the word you wish to omit. For example, we want to search for bass whilst preventing all bass fishing related searches from appearing. We can type bass competition followed by -fish, -fishing, and -speaker to remove all those millions of unwanted search results that have nothing to do with playing bass guitar. Similarly, If you're interested in a news item, you can remove certain news sources entirely using this technique. Tip 3. How to search for a phrase or quote with missing words. Simply use an asterisk as a placeholder for all missing words. Just yesterday I was recommended a book on philosophy called something like A Little Something Something Philosophy, but when I entered it in Google, it doesn't find the correct book. Simply type a little *** philosophy and Google returns the correct results based on the placeholders. Tip 4. How to perform a reverse image search. Go to images.google.com and then click either the camera icon to upload an image from your computer, or you can find an image hosted online, right-click on it and choose Copy Image URL and paste it into the search field. The first page of results will display images that are similar or related to your original, and to find matching images, click Search by Image to display exact matches. This is a great way to find the origin of a specific image, as mousing over each thumbnail displays the URL of the page on which it appears. Tip 5. Search within a single website. One of Google's most useful features, especially for researchers, is its ability to search within a single website. To search within a single site, simply enter your search term followed by site:\URL. For example, Thomas Paine, site:\archive.org. This returns only those pages on archive.org relevant to the search query, where you can find his complete works as a PDF. Tip 6. How to search for similar websites. If you've found a website that you really like, you can type related:\URL and Google will do its best to find websites that are related to the one entered. Whilst this doesn't guarantee equally excellent content, it does save time finding similar sites. Tip 7. Search for a cached version of a website. Have you ever gone back to reread something posted on a website only to find that it's been removed or changed? Type cache : followed by the URL to find the last cached version of the site, which may contain material that has been deleted or updated since. The frequency with which the website is updated and its popularity will determine how often Google caches the website, but often the cached version can be weeks or even months older than the current version. Tip 8. Search for a specific file type. Google allows you to search for a particular file type by typing file type: followed by the file type extension, for example PDF, PPT, doc, or XLS. This is an incredibly useful tool if you want material published in any of these formats. By searching for a PDF over a regular website, you're likely to be able to find academic essays, reports, entire books, and much else of interest. Likewise, searching for a PPT file will yield hundreds of PowerPoint presentations that often contain the information in a distilled form from sources such as universities. Tip 9. How to only display results that include the search term in the page title. To perform a search that only returns the pages with your search term as their title, just type in title: then your search term. Tip 10. Search Google without using Google and protect your privacy. Lastly, if you want to use all the benefits of Google's excellent search results but are concerned about your privacy, then try startpage.com. Startpage delivers Google search results without recording your IP address or placing tracking cookies in your browser, as well as using SSL encryption to ensure your ISP can't record what you do online. If this tutorial's been helpful,
So that's quite interesting, and I show that. I know we're talking about locating subjects, but one of the biggest ways to obviously find out where someone is to start up with an online search. Now, they were 10 very simple things. I think I knew about 4 of them. If anybody's looked up Google Dorks, remember I was trying to, there are literally, that's what's called dork terms, I guess. There are literally hundreds of these different back-end type things you can do in Google to find stuff out, depending on what you need. You're not going to use them all, of course. Okay, so check that out. They're all readily available. You can Google dork ;PDF, and I'm sure there'll be lots that comes up. You can print them out. I've got one in my office, you know, it's this thick, just full of Google search terms, different ways to go in and behind and find out missing information and stuff like that. All really good tools for an investigator. You don't need to know them all, but have that information handy would be really good. Okay, so planning and investigation, we've talked to death over this whole course about the importance of planning and profiling a subject. So if you're going to find someone, particularly if you're talking with a client, the more details the better, obviously, because the more details you have, the easier it's going to be to try and narrow down. Even stuff like they talked about their reverse image search, really interesting stuff to be able to, it's called geo-tracking, and there's all this weird stuff. I actually find it really quite fascinating. It sort of really interests me about this as the way the world is going. And I think I've said to you before, it's amazing how much information you can find on somebody, or in fact actually find or locate somebody just on the computer. Now, disclaimer, that's not to take away that you might need to go and knock on a door and cite somebody, okay? That's all. Your traditional investigative techniques will always be there and should always be there. But, in this modern world, you can find out lots of things. So, if you think, I had someone ring me a couple of weeks ago saying, I think the lady was a little bit crazy, to be honest, but she was saying, every time I walk down the street, people are pulling me up and recognising me. I said, okay, well, I'll have a bit of a look. So I got some images from her. Paul obviously gets recognised as, he actually is Russell Coit. I don't know if you've realised this, but this lady thought, someone was using her images from her website. She had a business. Anyway, I ran her photos that she gave me through a couple of free software programs and nothing came up. So I was able to sort of at least tell her, look, I've had a bit of a look for you. Nothing was there. I can't find anybody duplicating your photos and that sort of thing. It's an amazing world, this online world, even something, and it's all got these silly names like dorks and what is a sock puppet? So that can be your next thing. Google I know it's weird, but Google what's a sock puppet and come back and tell me what you think it is. But I need a sock puppet soon, actually. So, okay, we're talking about reviewing work instructions, workplace policies, we've talked to death, authorisations and compliance with rights and responsibilities. There's nothing different in this than what we've talked about for everything else that we do. Before conducting review work instructions, policies, procedures and legislation, okay, we've talked that policies involve things like your code of conduct, health and safety, etc. We don't need to go through these again. Some acts that are going to impact you doing this, well, Privacy Act will, but having said that, this sort of online research or open source intelligence is what they refer to as legal hacking. There's nothing illegal about it. This is all available online, but you as an investigator can have the tools to be able to dig deep, sometime into the dark web, and find out things. Sock puppet, what have you got? You've actually got pictures of mouth puppets. Okay. Yes, Paul.
We have a sock puppet is an online identity used for the purpose of deception.
Yeah, there you go. So without giving away any trade secrets, handy to have a sock puppet if you're an investigator, because you don't really want to be looking up people under you, do you? Then I'm not suggesting hacking into anything, by the way, but sock puppets are out there, even if you're if you're a victim of that. There are ways you can look into. Okay, so things like Surveillance Devices Act, relevant licensing. Look, do you need a license to trawl through the internet? No, you don't. But remember, you're a PI, so you're providing a service to somebody who's paying you to find them, find a debtor, find whatever. Clarifying investigation client requirements in consultation. Well, who are you going to consult with? Your client. They'll tell you what they want, and then they'll give you a file. You'll do your research and/or field calls and report back to them. It's all fairly simple. Skip tracing agencies that do hundreds of these things a week and paid pretty well, frankly. They're not cheap. They might cost 60, 100, a couple of $100 for 15, 30 minutes work. I did talk to a fellow who's got one of those agencies quite recently, and I said, "Look, mate, how long do you spend on these files? You're saying you're getting hundreds a week." He goes, 15 minutes. So file 15 minutes, be $100 off to the client, and that's what they're churning through. So they look for points of identification. Now that's not to say that person is there, because obviously to go out and confirm they're there and confirm that's them and all sorts of stuff takes a long time. That's up to the client to pay for. Normally they just want to know someone is somewhere so they can serve something on them. It's as simple as that. But very important to clarify instructions to locate a person. Look, your instruction may get, John Smith, he lives in Cairns. Where are you? I'm in London. Can you pop up there? This is a question I got asked very recently. So is it easy to pop up to Cairns and identify John Smith? I had a name and a city, and it was Cairns or Mackay or one of those. Anyway, it was a long way away. You know what? I found the person. I was quite proud of myself, but I found them not through this necessarily, by making a couple of phone calls. And that's all it was. I mean, I had to trawl through Facebook and all the other social media stuff and, get the ground about where they were. It ended up they were in Hervey Bay or something. So a couple of phone calls to the brother of the guy who I spoke to. Yes, he was here, now he's here, that's his address. Easy, very easy. So you may get a job like that. John Smith is in Cairns, can you find him? Well, there's probably lots of John Smiths in Cairns, and you can't just drive up there, after packing your afternoon tea. So obviously being in London, they didn't realise that Cairns was sort of a 2-3 hour flight from where I was, but this is what you get. Especially a lot of these jobs do come in from overseas. They don't realise the country we live in. Okay, if you're in London, obviously you can pop down to Manchester or wherever it is. That's quite easy. So clarification obviously takes place with the client themselves. So get written instructions. That's always good. Stakeholders, government bodies, etc., company policy, etc. One of the things which we have sort of touched on is this checking of validity for why someone wants to be found. Now again, you just need to be very careful about why it is you're finding someone, why it is you're looking for the gentleman's ex-wife. I don't know, it could be legitimate. Maybe he's owed money, maybe he wants to give something back, etc. You need to satisfy yourself, and as Paul and I have said, don't be ever afraid if something's not right to knock the job back. You don't want to get involved in that sort of stuff. God forbid you get involved in finding somebody, which you can do lawfully, you're licensed, okay, and let's talk worst case scenario, that person gets killed, okay. Have you done anything lawfully wrong? No, okay, this is what you get paid for, you'll be asked to find them. Just be very careful with that sort of thing. It is a bit of a judgment call. Domestic matters, be very careful about as well. Having said that, outside of all that, there's hundreds of legitimate reasons why you might need to find someone. So you need to satisfy yourself. Often it's to validate the client's intentions for the investigation to take place. So often it is just to find the address of somebody in order to generally serve process. That's a different field, going out and serving stuff. Not investigation related, but it's you need to be licensed to do that as well as a mercantile agency. Client does not always have good intentions. We've talked about that as well. An investigator will need to liaise with management, legal option, sometimes the police. Okay, so I'd suggest if you were asked to find someone in a domestic situation and something didn't look right and wasn't adding up to you, it might be something you probably want to pass on to the cops.
In regards to that situation, the guy hires you.
Yep.
You go and say, yep, no worries, I can take that on. He gives you a reason where you don't think there's any real issue. Where do the police stand with you approaching them saying, I've been asked to go and find Susan Smith?
To get that information. To ask that information.
Yeah, from the police. Where would you stand in regards to just walking to the police station, making yourself known, explaining the situation?
Look, I can't comment on all police services, only this one here. But look, they'll probably go, thanks, they might make a record of it. They won't help you. But these are these things that kind of rely on the cop you get, going to rely on the station you get, the city you get, the state that you're in. They're all different, And in the last lecture, I noticed someone, I won't name, but sent through the thing saying, look, their ex-partner was a cop and they were abusive and that. And there's bad people everywhere in every profession. But look, there'd be nothing wrong with doing that. Maybe they will help you. Maybe they would look it up and say, no, I wouldn't do that. I don't know. It's going to depend very much on the officer and your communication. Look, this is what I've been asked to do. I've got a few worries. Are you able to help? They'll either say no, there's a door, or or look you up, or help and look you up. I would suggest in this day and age, that maybe though, I can only talk for myself. If I was a cop and you came in and said that, maybe I would have a look and say, look, no, I don't think it's a good idea you do that. Why not? I don't know. You might get cop number 2, Paul, for example, say, I don't really care, get out of the door, you're wasting my time.
I object, Your Honour.
You can only ask, and make a report. That's whether they take a report or not's another thing. Okay, so conducting research to gather backgrounds, information on subjects and identify possible contacts and locations. That's what finding people's all about. Okay, the more information you can get, the better. And people will often say, oh, John Smith cans, okay? But then that's fine, but I would want to talk to the client. I mean, on that particular occasion with that John Smith in Cairns, I was dealing with a law firm that was dealing with someone else, so it was a bit hard. I couldn't talk to the client. But I would want to talk to the client, okay, John Smith, tell me about him. What's he look like? Who are his friends? What are his interests? Oh, he's a kayaker. Is that useful? Of course it is, because you jump on Facebook and you find 100 John Smiths, and 10 of them are into kayaking. Well, it's going to narrow down your search, isn't it? So just questions about more information, the better. How many brothers and sisters do they have? Where were they born? What are they into? What they're into will give away a whole heap, especially on social media. Okay, just ask questions. So the more information you can have on a subject, the better, easier, and quicker it will be for you to find them. Okay, how can we do that? How can we gather background information on the subject? Well, internet browsers, we've talked a lot about the searches and stuff like that. Social media. Interesting, the OSINT course that we talk about goes into searching specific things like Instagram and Facebook and how to LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff. Public records, so Australian Electoral Commission records. There's always investigators going to the AEC, which you can't take those records away, you can't photograph them, you've got to go there and look at them. So that's one point, whether it's reliable or not, but it may be worth something. Public records, speaking with others. Nothing's ever going to take away from talking to people. Okay, so you might know John Smith and you've narrowed him down to living somewhere in Hervey Bay, but you don't know where. Well, if you were able to go there, I can guarantee you within a day I'd find out something more about them. Even if I had a little bit more information. Someone will know them, especially in Australia, little towns and stuff like that. So, okay, assessing and verifying reliability of data and planning your activities. So again, don't believe everything you read online. Okay, you would all know this. There's an enormous amount of rubbish out there. Okay, but newspaper articles and heritage things, and there's almost an overload of information out there that is available to you. Always cross-references. So in skip tracing, I'm talking generally here, but they do a 3-point identity check. So they have, their policy and procedure to satisfy themselves of someone being somewhere is normally some sort of triangle 3-point thing. Other agencies might have more, some less. So if you get to work for a skip agency, they'll tell you what those 3 points are. Might be real estate data backed up by a social media account, backed up by electoral roll data, whatever it is. Okay. So conducting your investigation to try and locate someone, well, again, you might have a lot of information online, that's fine, but sometimes you just have to get in your car and drive somewhere. So if John Smith used to live at 123 Carr Street, Smithton, but he doesn't live there anymore, and you can't find him, you can't take him, why wouldn't you drive out there and speak to his neighbours? Do you know where he's gone? Yeah, I do actually, he's just around the road. Bang, done, see? Never be afraid to hit the road and knock on doors, and we keep saying that all the time. Okay, another video. okay, this Google dorking, legal hacking, just to help your skills as an investigator. Have a go at it, you know, look up yourself, see what you can find out, see what's out there about you, okay? It's really interesting. Okay, making field calls. So nothing beats making what they call a field call. I think this is the question, what is a field call? To identify and follow leads, trace a subject. So what is a field call? It's, you know, getting out and actually knocking on doors and talking with people. There's nothing. Why would you make it? Well, when you're sort of stuck and you need to actually confirm or cite somebody. So a client may be fine for you to find the location or address of somebody, but they may want you to also cite somebody. So there's additional expense to them, and you need to pass that on and say this is what it will cost, whatever your hourly rate is, and travel and all that sort of stuff. So that could be something you need to do as well. So cite the person, speak with them, speak with the neighbours, take photos, or to the location, show photos, you know. There's lots of different things you can do. So again, we're talking about open source intelligence and the importance of it. This is a video which sort of overviews OSINT, I guess.
Also known as Open Source Intelligence, or OSINT. Of all the intelligence disciplines, OSINT is probably the most widely used in both national security and the private sector, for obvious reasons. It is easily retrieved and exists in the public domain. U.S. law defines OSINT as data produced from publicly available information that is collected, analyzed, and disseminated while addressing a specific intelligence requirement. OSINT has been prevalent for years, but has become even more important since the onset of COVID-19. With analysts working outside of the SCIF, sometimes OSINT is the only option. Just because it's public doesn't mean it's easy to find. The surface web, the kind of information gathered with a basic Google or search engine, is just one aspect of OSINT. OSINT analysts also retrieve information from the deep web and dark web. The deep web refers to non-indexed pages, while the dark web refers to non-indexed pages that are involved in illegal activity. Mainly content that resides on dark nets and overlay networks that require a certain software or configuration to view. While OSINT is valuable, the hazards of overwhelm and misinformation are high. A key drawback to searching in the public eye is that whatever can be found by cleared intelligence collectors can also be found by adversaries. This is always why all-source intelligence is the best way to analyze a system, person, or event. While OSINT is performed on the public web, most of the tools are government or contractor owned to avoid foreign adversaries attacking the networks holding the data. And it's why most OSINT analysts still require a security clearance in order to do their jobs effectively. While OSINT sources are used in a number of intelligence disciplines, a traditional OSINT analyst will be cruising the World Wide Web in search of information to support intelligence reports. Because foreign adversaries are often the topic of these reports, having a second language under your belt will usually give you a leg up on the candidate competition.
Okay, so that was OSINT. So I implore you to explore that more. It is a fascinating area, and there's lots more learning to do about, basically solving crimes in front of a computer. Not crimes, solving things in front of a computer. So also searching open source intelligence databases to find leads, trace a subject. So not only does open source intelligence exist, but for PIs, there's also quite a few paid databases. Now we've mentioned a few. One really good one is the real estate sales data, which you, if you're a real estate agent, you get access to. Normally your firm pays for it. That's fantastic because it's everything that's sold and bought and by whom and when and for how much, etc. So that can be a really good place to start. But for an investigator, there are lots of different companies out there, like, not pushing any one of them, but Detective Desk is one. Okay, there's a subscription fee to that. That draws in that real estate data and hundreds of other sources as well. Things like Casper is another one. But you can search for all these, and there's quite a few on there. Okay, you've generally have to be licensed to have access to them though. So they need to satisfy themselves that it's a licensed investigator that's getting this information. Otherwise, anybody could just get on and pay and get this information as well. Again, there's nothing secret about it. It's not unlawful. Okay. Yes, they're paid databases, but it's lawful, and it's particularly lawful if you're a licensed investigator. But as well as that, we've got, as that video just showed, we've got the internet. We've got free and paid data sites, public libraries, electoral commission, birth, deaths and marriages. There's a whole load of different things that you can search to find stuff. Government or other agencies is sometimes problematic because you won't have access to that sort of stuff. Freedom of information claims. So what you'll find yourself doing a lot when you're an investigator is something called CTP, compulsory third party insurance matters. And you may have to make lots of different freedom of information claims to get the police report and find out who the witnesses are. Okay, so when you get into that sort of role, you'll familiarise yourself. That will become quite easy to you. Yes, you pay for those sort of things, but they've got police reports. They can be redacted. Public records as well. Sometimes you do have to run around and search public records, newspapers, anything like that. Here are some of the areas we've mentioned already: birth, deaths, marriages, property records, death records, court records. I did see a query yesterday, I think, about getting court records. Look, some websites have advertised for court records, but it's going to be very difficult for you to obtain criminal record of somebody, because I would assume that is, Paul, sensitive information. Probably not in the public domain, so that would be difficult to find. Residence and business details. Business, easy. Jump on. Anyone can search for ABNs, search up people, and that sort of stuff. The good thing about those paid databases for PIs is it's all in one place. So you can do one search for people, and you'll search their property. You'll search not only their property, but who lived with them, when, what years. Where those people live, whether they own any businesses, all sorts of different stuff. Phone numbers, addresses, associates, all that sort of thing. Cross-referencing is very important, so it's fine to have all this information, but what I can tell you, especially when you do a search, say, for example, on Detective Desk, you might John Smith, Cairns, print out a whole load of stuff. There's a skill, and that's not it. That's just not going to cut it if you're investigating, trying to locate something. There is a skill in being able to analyse and chunk that information into something that's relevant. One of the biggest skills investigators have is to disregard stuff that is irrelevant, and that video just mentioned it before about the overwhelming amount of data that you can have. It will overwhelm you when you start searching for someone. It's like up there till 3 o'clock in the morning searching all through stuff. You need to be able to very quickly analyse what's relevant to you and what's not, where you can chase someone down or follow something up, or not, because you'll waste a hell of a lot of time. You may need to conduct surveillance. Okay, so that's where this all ties in. And if your client wants it, if it's a big enough debt and you need to really confirm something, there may be a period of surveillance to be conducted. Speaking with friends, family, co-workers, neighbours, always great. You just got to remember that you do that, you can sometimes alert the person that you're looking for, which you may not want to do. Paid data searches, freedom of information we've talked about. All right, so reporting investigation outcomes. So what will happen, you'll do a skip trace for all intents and purposes, we'll call it a skip trace, and you'll do your report back to your client. And that report will be generally guided by who you're working for, but if you're working for yourself, it should contain all the information in a structured form about what you find. So it's no point dumping rows and rows and rows of analytical data to your client. Your client wants a report that they can read and is quite simple and easy to read and digest. Okay, so like anything, if you're doing a skip trace or location of a person, you should have a chronology. So chronology is what I did, when, time. So time, this is the date, time, did this search, no result. 4 o'clock, went to the birth, deaths and marriages, looked at, found this thing. Have a chronology, record what you do, and when you did it. Even if you don't obtain information, because I can tell you if you're doing a complex skip trace or locate, and you've trawled through quite a lot of detail, you don't want to forget that you've already looked at something. So that's why it's important. Keep your notes. This is all going back to your notes. This is something for you. Oh no, last week I already searched that, or already did that, so you don't have to do it again. Notes is also good for memory, and if you ever have to do a statement in relation to something like this, well, you've got all your notes. Also good for invoicing. So typically skip traces are fairly time limited, like you say, well, you've got 15 minutes or half an hour or an hour or whatever to do them. Sometimes they can be open, so you need to keep those records accurately. So collecting information or evidence can always be good, and what I said to you before is that often it's the case that your client, you might find John Smith and find that he's in Hervey Bay, and that's as far as you've been able to take it in the time that you've been allotted, the time that your client's going to pay for. Well, okay, well, you report back, well, there's a number of options here. I'm not in Hervey Bay, but I can contact an investigator to do a couple of field calls to try and locate the person, cite them, we'll send them a photo, but it's going to cost you this much. Okay, so that's what you report back to your client. Always give your client that option of, okay, this is what we can do, this is the benefits, by the way, this is what it's going to cost, because it's not free. I've talked about a report needing to be clear and concise, should have your investigator details, client details, summary, etc. Summary of what you found, okay, in clear terms to them. The facts and any recommendations. So again, your recommendation may be, look, Trace, we've been able to find out this was the last address, but it was 12 months ago, so it could be late. Perhaps a field call, is an option. The scenario is you are a factual investigator working subcontractor for All Aussie. You get a job to investigate a hit and run, and you investigate the matter, locate the driver of the vehicle that left the scene of the accident. Complete the template, which you all should have in front of you, and the CCTV footage. I think we've watched this already, but we'll watch it again. Okay, he takes off, there he goes, but we found him. Okay, so this is about, the scenario is obviously back at home. The accident's been captured on the thing. You've been hired to investigate the matter. You're advised to plan and conduct an investigation and locate the subject and report the investigation process and the steps that should be taken to carry out the investigation. Okay, one evidence, obviously, the CCTV footage, photographs, etc., number plates, and that sort of thing. So the rest is, typical of the work we've already been doing with these templates that fill in what the scope is, resources need, all the same stuff. Frankly, you could probably cut and paste from quite a bit of it. Yes? Yeah, they are different. Oh, they are? Okay. The resources that you will need, okay, legal requirements, etc. Then what else did you undertake? So of course you met with the client to discuss requirements, review notes, take statements, etc. Research that you would undertake to locate the person. Well, you did a field visit to the site. You might have got some driving and insurance records, CCTV, etc. Whether there was a field call, whether you took statements, and then basically details of planning the process you undertook for the investigation. So that, again, it's just very similar to what we've done already, identifying the scope, confirming with the client the outcomes, reviewing reports, visiting crash sites, requesting copies of CCTV, etc., taking statements until you report to the client and the New South Wales Police, and outcomes as well. Recommendations, they're much similar to the previous templates that we've done. Yes, Paul.
Thanks, Greg. Can you just click back to the video? We don't want to watch the video again, but just on that scene, does anyone notice the police car? Has anyone noticed that sitting there? So that is another tool that you might want to use there as well. And you'll know that the police car isn't quick to react, but there we go.
Well, there could be a security car. We're assuming it's a police car. Okay. Good work. Okay, so that is that's investigating and locating subjects. Probably one of the more interesting things you'll do as a PI, I guess.